United Nations peacekeepers have been under attack, operating in increasingly hostile environments with new threats from drone warfare, all amid shrinking finances. I sat down with Jean-Pierre Lacroix, the Undersecretary General for Peace Operations, to examine the challenges facing global peacekeeping missions. I'm Frank Uciardo, and this is TRT World One-on-One. Mr. Jean-Pierre Lacroix, the Undersecretary General for Peace Operations at the United Nations. Thank you for joining us here on TRT World.
My pleasure.
When you first took on your position, when was that, and what was the staffing among the peacekeepers? How many blue helmets did you have?
Yeah, I started in my position on the 1st of April 2017, and at the time we had above 100,000 peacekeepers, civilian, military, and police on the ground.
And there are considerably less peacekeepers now.
That's right. Yes, we had a number of missions closed for different reasons. Actually, some of them were closed because the political process that the missions were supporting were successfully completed, and that was the case for Sierra Leone and that was the case for Liberia and Côte d'Ivoire. Sierra Leone was closed before I started, and I think it's important to note that because today the gains in stability in those two countries are still very much there, so you can consider that this is a success of peacekeeping. But eventually other missions were closed. MINUSMA, because the host government at some point decided that they would not continue with the mission. Having said this, though, we still have about 60,000 peacekeepers deployed on the ground. We continue to have 11 peace operations, so it's quite significant. And those peacekeepers do make a huge difference every single day in what they do.
I want to get into the public perception of what UN peacekeepers do, protecting civilians, holding ceasefires together. Is that the prevailing vision of what you're about?
Well, certainly that is the reality. I think if you were to really describe what the peacekeepers do, I mean, they essentially protect civilians, of course, and every single day hundreds of thousands of civilians are protected by peacekeepers in a very concrete manner. I've been so many times to the ground, and I've seen internally displaced person being provided protection, and therefore the possibility of receiving humanitarian assistance by peacekeepers, and ceasefires are being prevented from unraveling by peacekeepers, because in many peacekeeping missions, the peacekeepers prevent small incidents from escalating and creating potentially more tension and possibly the resumption of hostilities. That's what they do.
One of the most contentious hotspots that peacekeepers are in are Lebanon, right? As we speak, you lost a number of personnel there. Tell us about the attacks, who initiated them, and what was the outcome? Who did it?
First of all, yes, it is the case that in the last couple of months, UNIFIL lost 7 peacekeepers from France, from Indonesia, from Serbia, and we had many more injured peacekeepers. I want to say that the attacks against peacekeepers are unacceptable. We often say that they may constitute war crime. I'm very happy that the Security Council of the United Nations recently adopted a resolution about accountability for crimes against peacekeepers, because those perpetrators need to be brought into account, basically, and they need to be held accountable for what they did. Now, having said this, yes, Lebanon is an environment which is difficult and challenging and dangerous for peacekeepers. Our peacekeepers are making a lot of effort to not only do their work of monitoring and reporting, but also helping the Lebanese armed forces and helping the population through the delivery of humanitarian assistance. Now, after the 31st of December, which is when the mandate of UNIFIL expires, then it will be up for the Security Council to decide whether they agree on the UN presence, and I'm talking about the uniformed UN presence after UNIFIL. The Secretary General of the United Nations made a proposal to that effect, and now it's in the hand of the Security Council.
I was going to ask you about that. I guess within the last couple of days, Germany's foreign minister is worried about a vacuum being left behind when UNIFIL wraps up its mandate, and he thinks the EU should be sending in some kind of force. How would that work?
So obviously there is a lot of international support that is required for Lebanon. Now, what we've been hearing from the Lebanese authorities, particularly as we were preparing the options that our Secretary General presented to the Security Council, was that the Lebanese authorities were quite unanimous on that, wanted to keep a UN presence in Lebanon, and they indicated very clearly what the key roles in their view should be those of the UN presence, which is about monitoring, observing, reporting, liaison, deconfliction. I think it's important to state that any UN presence would be, from our point of view, aimed at supporting political efforts and the efforts of the Lebanese armed forces and the security forces to achieve the objective of a fully sovereign Lebanon fully in control of over the whole territory of that country.
Do ceasefires work because of the prospect of involvement of peacekeepers?
Well, I believe that first of all, it of course depends on the kind of environment in which we operate. I can think of a number of examples where the role of peacekeepers is instrumental in preserving ceasefire. Of course, in the case of Lebanon, I believe that UNIFIL was successful from that point of view over a number of years in deconflicting and preventing unintended escalation. It was much more difficult for UNIFIL to achieve the role of supporting the Lebanese Authority in the disarming of armed groups because the political condition in Lebanon for that were not there.
I guess when it comes to kind of peace operations, I think Haiti is a big question mark right now. And you have been there, I understand.
And I've been to Haiti several times in 2017, 2018. What I can say is that the security issues were essentially solved. Of course, there were still pockets of tension, but essentially no one was really talking about the security issue as a main problem in Haiti. And I believe that our role as a UN mission was critical in achieving that. However, and this is where I believe it's important to emphasize the political dimension, the political dispensation in Haiti had not been solved. And I think that tells us a lot about that, okay, it's one thing to solve the security problems, it's important, but it's not enough. Ultimately, what counts is a durable political solution.
Another area, on the continent of Africa, it's been quite a tumultuous situation there over the past couple of years. Several countries, your peacekeeping operations there have varied and, of course, have been threatened and have been in some very dicey situations. Talk about the presence that remains there right now.
Right. We continue to have our biggest operations in Africa, and I'm convinced that they're making a huge difference. We're really achieving significant progress in the case of the Central African Republic. Obviously, this is a country that continues to have some challenges, but I think that there is an agreement that the situation in that country is much better from the point of view of security, from the point of view of the political situation there, and that our own peacekeeping mission have played an important role together with the Central African themselves, of course. I think the good news is that there continues to be political efforts from the African Union, from other stakeholders, such as the United States in the case of DR Congo and Qatar. We support these political efforts. I think it's fair to say again that without us, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of civilians would be at very, very risk if our peacekeepers were not there.
Is the UN system of supporting peacekeeping operations broken, and where does it demand more of your attention?
I believe that we have to convey a number of
And I'm talking finances here, of course,
right,
which is
yeah.
drastic.
So consistency would demand that all member states pay what they have to pay, which is the assessed contribution, and those assessed contributions are essentially the result of decision made by the member states themselves. So I hope that this message will be heard and heeded and followed up. We can't continue delivering on our mandate if we don't receive payments by all member states of their contributions. If that doesn't happen, then I believe that we would reach a point where we would have to tell our member state that we're not able to implement the mandates that were created by them.
You know, two final questions. I want to read back to you something you said where you said more conflicts than ever, but divisions among member states makes them less likely to choose peacekeeping to address the crisis. That's a glaring statement here.
I think the divisions of our member states essentially makes them less likely to choose collaborative solutions to crisis. And peacekeeping is one example of these collaborative solutions, of these collaborative tools. And I would remind us that the list of countries that reach stability with the support of peacekeeping operation is very long. You're starting from Angola, Mozambique, Cambodia, Timor-Leste, El Salvador, Sierra Leone, etc., etc. I'm not saying that we will never see that again. I'm just saying that the increased division that we're seeing amongst the member states, among the Security Council, makes the Security Council, the member states, less likely to opt for multilateral solution to crisis.
Jean-Pierre Lacroix, the Undersecretary General for Peacekeeping Operations and Peace Operations. Thank you for joining us here on TRT World.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.